Evening. So I'm going to be tying a pattern today that I sort of came up with. It was just a mix of things that I thought went very well within a salmon fly. So it was featured in the October 2025 edition of Triton Salmon amongst two other flies, but this one specifically that I've named the Connolly's Cascade. So this year I had a few fish on it. I would fish this fly in for salmon, low water, high water, dirty water, clean water, it doesn't matter. I've had springers on it, I've had grills on it, I've had steel fish on it, I've had fresh fish on it. For me, it just doesn't really matter. One of the big things with fishing these specifically is the bead. As soon as it hits the water, it's fishing, compared to the likes of doubles or trebles that are unweighted, and you're really relying on poly leaders or time or something else to really drag the fly down into the water, whereas these fish immediately. It's a good alternative as well to tubes because it has a smaller profile. I love smaller flies, I love sparser flies, and these are a good wee variant other than tubes. So you can see this one here has bucktail in it, and then can you see that one as well? That one has runner in it, so runner's a wee bit softer material. There's times at which I've used runner in maybe too fast a current and it just deforms and it just doesn't work whatsoever, and the bucktail caught fish straight away after that. So we're going to start off with this one. Stop me at any time during it as well if you want to ask any questions, but I'll rattle through the demo and then we can go over it after. So starting off with a hook, not used too often within salmon fishing. So it's a wee single hook, a Camazan B175 size 8. Oh. Is it on your phone? Is it still showing? So even as I said, in low water, I know others that use beads that go down a size. I don't, and for me it doesn't really matter. And then we have these beads, so you can see that one's orange. I'll just show you in the packets. Again, I only ever use 3.8mm fulling mill, so you got them in a variety of colors. Like these are brass beads, yeah. In a variety of colors. So do Wilkinson's in the purple. I would do sort of Cascade type ones in that, and just something a little bit different. But you can get them in many different colors. So first of all, what we do is, you can see on the bead has a small end and a wider end. You always thread the small hole up in first, as that's going to be the forward leading edge of your fly. And we'll just set that in. Always like to make sure it's nice and level. The bead is pulled right to the top, so we know we're gonna start. Question earlier, what thread I use? I always use white. I don't know whether it's because I put Glow Bright in first, and you can only really use white in there, or it really dulls down the color. And then if the heads are a different color, maybe a black or maybe a red, I'll just cover the top of the white thread on top of that. So for me, I always use white. So first of all, I'm just starting the thread where I think the wing is going to go. So you can see there's probably about 2 or 3 turns just in front of that. And that's very specific for me because I'm already measuring out exactly where I want to run my body and my wing on top of. I'm just going to run that down a few more turns. So first of all, we have the green butt. Now, this one's green. I use red for many different colors. I've used pink, I've used blue. Say for a Wilkinson, I change between pink and blue rear butts. Green, I use a lot for Cascades. Reds, I'm specifically using for maybe willy guns, like willy gun tubes, willy gun Cascades, or willy gun singles. So I'm just going to take off a couple of inches of that.
Which Glow Bright is that on, sorry?
Glow Bright number 12, fluorescent green. The red that I use is number 4. So I've learnt most of my fly tying from Anthony McCann, but I still pick up tips from others. So this one, which is threading on the Glow Bright, I got from Pete Keeley, and just threading up and round. So I'll maybe speak through a few other tires tips that I've got along the way. So I'm threading that right down until I get the thread to the actual barb. Now, I wouldn't tie that far back if I'm only tying on a tag. So I don't move the tag on the fly, I just put the green butt in behind it so it sits a little bit in behind it. Picked that up from a guy on YouTube and a good friend, Cian O'Boyle, also ties. So as we're coming round the actual hook point, just bring this up and out of the way. I'm gonna probably do 2 turns forward, but I'm gonna double the turns over so it's a nice contrast on the actual glow bite, and it sort of thickens up the color on that. So you can see 2 turns round, and then I'm going to come 1 forward, and I'm going to go around once more. So I'm going to bring that thread down. You can see that's actually up to the thread. I'll bring the thread over and just put the weight on the bottom. So before I bring that forward, I'm going to do 3, 4 turns, and then I'm just going to snip off the excess and bring that forward a little bit. So we'll tidy that up a bit later. Next up, we're going to go for the tag. I only use Lagarton oval. I generally never go above fine in most of my flies. The only time I'd really even go to medium is for quite large tubes. I just think it gives a lot finer sort of definition to the fly. So I'll take off probably about 1.5 inches for that one. And again, just add that underneath. One to screw it in, just start bringing that back. So I'm going to bring this right down to the bulk of the actual butt itself, and tie one over again and tie in touch and turns forward, about 4 turns forward. I have hands like feet, so even putting on tag, I use a Hackle pliers. So they were an absolute game changer with my tan. Tony got me to get them to put on Hackles, but I use them for other things now. Even doing the likes of the glow bright green butt, sometimes I put it on the Hackle pliers and I can get good tension on it, and it really gives me control of it. So I always put on 4 turns. See, there's 2, 3, 4, and then I'm just going to tie that in. So just put a bit of weight on that, come over and just release that, and just start to tie that forward. And then I'm just going to clean the body up then to start putting down the tail. Just push the bobbin out of the way. There's another one from Pete. So this one is bucktail. This is from Sean Stanton. I don't know why I got this, but Sunburst specifically I thought was just a cracking colour. It's not yellow. I don't know if you can get a closer look at that one. Lovely colour, really straight bucktail, really good quality. I go generally on most flies between about 8 and 10 strands specifically. I mentioned earlier I really like sparse flies. Even in high water, I'll still fish this when the fish are out in the current and they're in the slack water and your flies are turning around into them. Small flies like this will still catch fish in big water. So, or you can see I have bucktail. There's many different ways in adding bucktail to the fly. People stack it where it's very uniform and a very say all fibers are stopped right at the same length. I like it tapered, so I just start working through. So you can just start to stack them naturally, and you can start to take the taper out. Another option is that I've seen is Paul Grieve, is you just bend them back, and you can start to pull the shorter fibers out a little bit to match the actual length. So when we have enough at the sort of length that I want, I'll just take a grasp on it, take out some of the excess, and then just continue to stack that in. Takes a bit of time, well, I take a bit of time doing it, but it's definitely worth it whenever you get a nice tapered tail on the end. There you go. Just take that last one out. There you go. So you can see there, I don't know, for some people that might be too little, but they always see it, and if they want it, they will come and get it. So looking at the length, I don't like long tails whatsoever. It just gets in my head. I'll never put a fly on that has a long tail, and if I ever have a suspicion that it's too long, it lasts 5 minutes max, and it's straight off. So tail length for these, and most things I'll do is maybe between 1 and 1.5 times the actual shank length of the hook, and I'll always set it down and just have a look at it. I like the way it's tapered as well. It does give it a bit more movement in the actual tail, in the fibers, because they're all supported at different lengths. Just bring that up. What I like to do is just pinch and loop over, just so that I have the actual bucktail sitting on top. And once that's over, I actually just hold the fibers on top and do 4 turns forward, and then they're loose. That's just the weight of the bobbin on it. And then just have a little look there, just to make sure everything's sitting on top. There's a nice little taper on that, and also it's covering the top of the hook, so I'm happy enough with that. This stage, no real pressure on the bucktail itself, or it'll splay. So I'll leave it like that, and I'll go and add a bit of flash. For this one, I only ever do crinkle flash, just 1 strand tied on, folded back on itself. Very rarely will I go and add crinkle flash and maybe mirror flash too. I don't think something this small really needs that much flash in it. Whenever we get to a stage of maybe tubes, yeah, I'll put both in. So you can see that sitting up. What I do now is just lift up that bucktail just to make sure everything's sitting on top, and just run myself down. And whenever I get to about 3 or 4 turns from the tag, I just have a look again at where the flash is and just adjust, so you can see that's pulled down in. I'll grab that again, and I'm just going to work myself down into the tag, and you have that sitting exactly how I want it. So I put it on the size for one end, and I've just cut the next. So next, Tony showed me this method. I don't super glue the thread straight away. I add super glue onto a post-it, and with a bobbin threader, add the actual thread itself. So I don't know if I'm out of shot here, Tony, but I'm just adding that super glue down onto a post-it note, and I'm just going to add about 1 inch of super glue onto the thread itself, and that just really secures in the bucktail, and we'll have a nice secure bed then for the actual body to go on. So I'll just come up to where I started that and just let that soak in. So next I'm going to get rid of all the excess of the bucktail, so I'm going to pull that up and cut at a 90 degree angle to it. And what that's going to do is give us a nice taper, like it's the thorax of the fly in itself. It also supports the wing, so the wing then, instead of lying flat on the hook, will give it a nice shape to it. So I'll just run that forward again, and then I'm going to come back and clean that up a little bit, so it is a nice contour for us adding on the body. So there we go. Next, again, we're back to Lagarton. This is stuff that's phenomenal. I pretty much use it in every single fly, especially the mini flat braid. It's so versatile. The color range is phenomenal, and also it's really forgiving for putting onto bodies. So if your body is maybe not really contoured or it's a bit bumpy, the flat braid will go around it a lot better than your flat tinsel will. My box is probably full of most of the range that's out there, and before it runs out I always ensure I have more. I'm not too frivolous with materials, so I do create a bit of waste. There's many different ways you can put it on, but I just cut a bit off and just add it to the opposite side of the fly. So this will be the closest side of the camera. And just give it 2 turns. Just have a look around, that's grand. I want to make sure that that leading edge isn't going to be further forward than the tie-in point. And as I come down, it's extremely important that I don't bring the thread right the way back to the tag and where the tail actually starts. And the reason for that is, if I do, the width of this flat braid will actually cover the tail, it will flatten it down on the tag, and it will also cover the tag as well. So I always leave about half the width of the actual flat braid itself, there or thereabouts. It's pretty forgiving. And then I just bring forward the thread to the point that I actually want to have the flat braid stop. So your first turn, take a bit of time in doing so. 1 full turn round, don't even think about going forward first. So at this stage I'll put a bit of pressure on it, hold it round, tag's good, bucktail's good. I can continue on and adding the flat braid up. So we'll just start bringing that up the hook. So the thread underneath might be a bit tacky still, so that'll actually secure in the flat braid a good bit and give a bit of security to the fly. I do know others that maybe dabble it back up again whenever you're putting it in. I've never had any problems with not doing so.
So you just overlapping that sort of half with the...
Exactly, yeah. Just bringing that forward. Keeps going on top of itself, it gets a bit bulky, so it does. So I've just secured that in with 1, and I'll do another 2 forward, specifically 2 for this. And then I'll push that out of the way, the thread out of the way, and I'll just come in and cut that. So there you can see, there's our tag, our butt, our tail, our crinkle flies, and our body's all done. So I've just went 3 forward, and I'm going to put the wing on. So what I'm going to do is actually give that a bit of a spin to tighten up the thread, and 3 right on top of what I have just done, backwards again, on top of itself, and that's going to create the platform for my wing. The wing for this fly is Orange Fox. I got this off Tony McCann at Stay Hooked. Honestly, some of the best stuff. You can see how mobile that is there. I've got that in a range of colours too, so even for the likes of tubes you can use that. Some good stuff there. I always take a chunk off. I find it a lot easier to pick out material for the actual wing if I take off chunks of the pelt itself, and then just grab a chunk out to what I think I'm going to use, and then I always grab a little bit more. So whenever I'm getting rid of the under fur, I always pull out a little bit, and then I'll measure and cut. So there's the material that I've taken out for the wing. For me that's a little bit too much, but first always drag out the under fur and get rid of all the bulky stuff, which we do not want whenever we're tying in this. Get rid of it. And then for me personally, it's a little bit too bulky, so we'll continue just to thread that out a little bit. So we're probably getting to a stage where I'm happy enough with the thickness of the wing that I want to put in. So what I do then is I measure out how much wing I want on. I'll always try to make it about halfway down the tail of where I want it to go, and then I'll cut the size. So you can see there's the thread. I'll just put that on so I know roughly about how much I want to put on there. So that's my access for this. So I'll come in, cut that down. It's very important that I make sure that that's the same length, or you'll have some of it pull out inside the thread. Right, so now I'm just going to wet the end of that and set that down onto the fly. So next I come over with one turn. That's it now, held in place. So this can get very finicky. I always hold it. What I'm looking for next is that one in place and about 3 wraps of super glue. And that's just going to come over once, and then I'll start to put a bit more pressure on it. And I'll just leave that to sit so you can see if you pull it out there. I'm going to hold that in. I'll let that dry for now. Okay, whilst that's drying, up next, and the only thing we have left to do for this fly is the hackle. Just something that I've taken from fishing, that I love softer tails and stiffer hackles for the movement in the water. Anything softer for me just conforms to the body and covers the body itself, where the stiffer fibers not only pulse in the water, but also let you see the body and let you see the different colors, different materials, different shapes of the fly. So this is Orange Badger, and whenever I'm picking out a feather for this, I kind of generally know because I've used this cape quite a bit, but if I don't, what I'm looking for is I go halfway down the actual feather itself, put it to the furthest end of where the actual hackle is going to be, and I want it just to be touching in and around the point of the hook, and that's what kind of guides me towards the proportionality of the feather that I want to add. Now, I'm not a professional like Tony, so I can't fold the feather yet. So I did do a bit of practice over Christmas, but you either use it or lose it, and I lost it. So I haven't been doing as much time as I would have liked. So let me just grab out a bit of wax. So I'm going to wax the thread because I'm going to put a bit of pressure on this hackle and folding the fibers back with a method, a pair of scissors. So there I've created a tie-in point. That's exactly where my feather is going to be tied on. So I tied the wing on with 3 to 4 wraps forward. What I'm going to do is put the tie-in point in, wrap 3 back to the point where I want the hackle to start its first turn, fold this bit here, the waist end, back again, and go 3 to 4 forward, and that's going to give me real good security, and then that will bring me up to where I actually want to finish the hackle of the fly itself. So this is going to go on my end in this case. Just tighten up that thread a little bit. The bead may kick up this feather in itself, but bring that round. Bring it around 3 times, and that's my 3rd turn. So I went 3 back. So what I'm going to do now is just grab everything in that case. So remember earlier I said hands like feet, I wasn't messing. So I'm going to bring that over once and then just grab the rest. 2, 3 forward. So just holding pressure on that, I can take the actual tag end of the fly, the waist end, hold a bit of pressure, and just yank that out. Next up we have the hackle pliers again. So I'm going to use them this time for specifically what they're for. Already I know that's far too many feathers, so we'll just take a few off that. And it's just really knowing from experience exactly how much you're going to put on. Bit too much material, so cut that down. And I'll just put the hackle pliers on. Take a pair of scissors, and what I'm just doing here is just training the fibers back a little bit. and that's going to be in the direction that I want the actual feathers to go whenever I'm putting a hackle on. Hackles ain't my strongest point, but as you can see there, I've just put a bit of saliva on and I'm just starting to encourage them back. So as I'm putting this on, the hackle fibers aren't going directly back on themselves, which will actually make them sit up a bit more. So if I folded them really tight on themselves, they'll sit back, but I actually want them to sit at more of a shallower angle, so they're sitting up in the water. So straight fiber there. And what I'm actually doing now, and this is incredibly important and something that it took a bit of time for me to get right, is just threading this hackle up until the bead, as to the point where the bead will actually slide over the front of the hackle, protecting the hackle, but also it means I do not have to have a collar in there. So what you're actually seeing is the hackle itself underneath the bead, and this actually starts from whenever you put on the wing. So make sure whenever you're putting on the wing, you're not doing doubled over yourself. You're doing your 3 to 4 reps forward, you're doing 3 back on the hackle, you're doing 3 forward again to screw it in. Any more bulk and your actual white thread will be visible in behind the bead itself, and in front of the hackle, which the face don't mind, but I do. I would take it off if I hadn't had a face in 10 minutes. So what I'm doing now is just stripping off the fibers that I know I won't use. And you can see as I bring the stem around there at the bottom, I've come to the end of the hackle that I want to put on. I'm right up towards the bead, and I'm just going to secure that in with one. So there you go, that's that secured in already. So what I'm going to do now is add a couple more forward. So usually I would have kept the hackle pliers on there just to pull forward, but just to show you, I've pulled that forward. So that's 3 forward. And I'm going to pull everything back. Make sure I'm not tying on top of stuff. And come around on that. So what that is doing is securing in the hackle stem, giving a real good hackle security. And there you can see there that hackle stem is just pointing back towards the end of the fly itself. So what I can do is just come in and cut that right off inside of the bead itself. So next, what we can see there is we already have the bead quite tight up on that. So it's not going to need any additional wraps or anything. Sometimes I do need that, or the bead will actually slide up onto the hackle and the wing itself. So I'm going to go straight away with a couple of wraps of super glue, let that set, and I'm just going to cut off the thread itself. So I'm going to take one off for myself, and I'm going to give myself probably about an inch of thread. So it's very important because each fly isn't going to be exactly the same. So if I did one earlier and I needed about 8 to 9 wraps just to fill up the back of the bead. 1, 2, 3, and then I'll have a look at that. Just give that about 10 seconds. Just let the super glue fit in, soak into the back of the bead. Just leave that to sit. Okay. I'm just going to come up and underneath. Cut the thread, and there you go. That is a B175 size 8 Connolly's Cascade for all conditions for salmon.
Very nice, Sam.
Very nice.